As Spawn leaves, Wanda leans back, accidentally tripping the answering machine.
Wanda, this is Cage. Get out of the house now. Do you hear me? Now. Spawn attacked us. He's gone nuts. He might be coming your way. He knows us. Christ, he's crazy. You've got to get away.
Hell's Torture, his podcast, continues.
Welcome back, Hellspawn, for another episode of Spawnography. I'm your host, Pierce Lyden. Pronouns, they, them.
I am George Marston, they, them, or she, her. I am excited to be back with you today, my friend Pierce.
Yeah, it's nice to see you, George. How's your week?
You know, it's been, it's had its ups and downs. I've been getting into some union stuff at work, like just trainings and stuff, which has been really cool, very rewarding. So, yeah, you know, just hanging in there. How about you yourself, my friend?
Oh, pretty good. This past weekend was the Brooklyn half marathon.
Oh yeah.
But I got a stomach bug, like in the day before, so I didn't eat solid food for like 36 hours.
Oh, bro.
But I still ran 13 miles.
Look at you.
I don't recommend it, but it was fine. I took it easy because I was like, oh, you know, I'm not feeling great. And I woke up that morning and I was like, oh, I feel good enough to do it. It won't be fast. So I'm beginning my training block for Berlin right now. So
if I woke up feeling good enough to run 13 miles under any circumstance, it would be a life-changing day for me. Like, these colors don't run, baby.
Yeah, Vanessa, my girlfriend, also did the run, and she PR'd.
Oh, okay.
She sometimes listens.
I don't know what that means.
Personal record. She
that's great.
Yeah, she ran her best ever half marathon. So Vanessa, if you're
Wow,
listening,
well, big ups.
Congratulations. I already told you this in person, but
girlfriend of the pod,
girlfriend of the pod, and ran into, saw some friends and stuff at that race, which was really cool. And then I had my hockey championship. Shout out to the black team. By the time this airs, it will be almost the next season, it feels like.
Wow.
But like the summer will almost be over. But we lost 3-2. So
that's a bummer.
Yeah, it was tough loss. But I love those kids. I love the families that I get to coach. They're great people. I did gift the first 7 issues of Spawn to my leading scorer.
Oh, that's great. I hope they loved it.
He is 7, so I'm sure he will.
That's great.
I then did realize I gave him the Billy Kincaid issue, and I was like, hey, Mom, maybe read these with him. Maybe skip that one.
Yeah. Man, I actually had, thinking about it, I actually had a pretty big athletic weekend myself, uncharacteristically. Not usually, I'm not much of an athlete, but this weekend I made it out of bed before 11:30 on both Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, wow.
And that was a biathlon for me.
Well, any athlon's a biathlon for you.
That's right. That's true. That's a good point. That's a good point.
So we got a couple issues today. Spawn number 35 and 36. This is an arc hilariously called Setup. Feels like any of the arcs could have been called this, but
all right. Well, before we get into that, I'll let you get into the rest of the credits. But that's Setup.
Cool. So Image Comics presents Setup, story by Todd McFarlane, pencils by Greg Capullo, inks by Todd McFarlane, copy editor and letters Tom Warzakowski, color by Steve Olive, Queen Suplee, and Oli Optics. Special thanks to Kevin Conrad and Julia Simmons. Dedicated to Ernie Chan.
Oh, okay.
Not actually sure who Ernie Chan is. Do you know who Ernie Chan is?
No, we could have looked it up beforehand, but I didn't.
I'm going to look him up now.
Yeah, that's probably a good call. Well, here's to you, Ernie Chan. You got an episode of Spawn or an issue of Spawn dedicated to you, and you probably have something to do with comics or hockey.
Yeah, so Ernesto Chan, born and sometimes credited as Ernie Chua, was a Filipino-American comics artist known for work published by Marvel and DC, including many Marvel issues of series featuring Conan the Barbarian. Chan also had a long tenure on Batman and Detective Comics. Other than his work on Batman, Chan primarily focused on non-superhero characters, staying mostly in the genres of horror, war, and sword and sorcery.
I actually do know the name Ernie Chua.
Oh,
Oh, and he passed away in 2012.
yeah,
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
I do know the name Arnie Chua. I didn't realize that that was a pseudonym or a second. So
Cool.
there you go. There you have
Shout
it.
out to the Todd father for another nice dedication. I like where we start this issue
Mm-hmm.
because Twitch is all better.
That's right. He's healing up. He's back in the office. We got a big welcome back Twitch banner right at the top of the opening of 35, and we've got Sam looming over him, shoving his return cake into his mouth, and he's basically explaining to Twitch that he didn't actually plan all this himself. All the guys did, basically all the cops did, because Twitch is so beloved in the office. And I like that he's talking about, Twitch is like, you sure you didn't bring the 5 dozen jelly-filled mega donuts? I would love some jelly-filled mega donuts.
Sounds good.
Honestly, maybe with like a big mega coffee.
I like how all the cops are drawn in the background. There's like Capullo like McFarlane is a good cartoonist in the sense that he gives just a lot of personality to even the most minor characters.
Yeah, someone I read compared his line work to Jack Davis at one point, Mad Magazine, and famed UGA cartoonist Jack Davis,
Hmm.
hometown hero for me. And especially on this page where you're just looking at folks, none of them are like Hellspawn or Warriors. You're really seeing that that cartooning influence come through, where he's trying to capture a person's character in their face, and he's really good at it. Honestly, the more we read this Spawn, I say this a lot, and I'm sure I'll say it more and more. Big Greg, your stuff is growing on me hard, and I am appreciating it. Oh, we didn't talk about that. Big announcement today in comics. This will be late when you hear it, but Greg Capullo doing a Wolverine series with Jonathan Hickman.
The most interesting thing about that, I think, is Tim Townsend taking over as his new regular inker.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
I
to
like
see.
Tim Townsend's inks a lot, and I'm curious. I mean, I think you can kind of already see it in that first promo image.
Mm-hmm.
With
There are
like
some
the
pages that
dinosaur.
came out too that look pretty good.
Yeah, but
pretty good.
Tim Townsend usually Chris Pacello's inker, and there's that dinosaur has like there's something to it that I was like, oh, that looks
Totally, I
Pacello-y.
can see that. I can see that. Anyway, enough of derailing. So yeah, while they're celebrating Twitch's return, who should also come into the office but Chief Banks, who has recently been the victim of some file hijinks on the part of Spawn and Sam and Twitch. Spawn gave Sam and Twitch some very sensitive files in order to try and get the chief to do some things he wants. Twitch and Sam decided to keep them, mostly Sam, and they'll try to blackmail him in this series with them in this story, this two-parter, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, the files explain that Banks was knowledgeable of Billy Kincaid in terms like essentially that he's working for Jason Wynn, that he helped Billy Kincaid, get out, that he knew about everything going on there and kind of did nothing about it or allowed Kincaid to be in that like rehabilitation center rather than a prison. We've already established that Sam specifically really hates Billy Kincaid. And so to have Banks be behind what they felt like was a farce back in issue 5 is I mean, it's, again, we've said it before. It's a slow moving book. We're following up on stuff from like issues 5 through 8 in issue 35 and 36. It
True.
is what it is.
And I think that also they were sort of, because Spawn apparently left Billy Kincaid's body hanging in their office. They were suspected of murdering him,
Right.
which
Yeah,
was
they were
actually done by
suspended.
Spawn. So yeah, and they were suspended, which will come up in this as well. Um, so they've faced more consequences for Spawn's murder of Billy Kincaid than anybody else, including, as you were just explaining, Chief Banks, who helped him get out of jail on behalf of Jason Wynn. It's a whole twisted mess. Parts of it don't exactly make sense, but it's fine. This two-parter is basically like Filesgate. It's like where a lot of files come home to roost.
Also a filing cabinet, but we'll get there.
There is an entire cabinet of files that plays a role in this series.
But yeah,
I keep saying
I like
series, I mean story.
Sam and Twitch being like having Banks as an antagonist. We're typically used to Commissioner Gordon types, right? Which
Right.
is even kind of what Banks looks like. He kind of looks like Commissioner Gordon. And
Like a sleazy version.
right, exactly. But he's got like the mustache and the glasses, and so like instantly your brain does that, and then you're like, oh, there's something more insidious here. And but I like that, even though the myth of a good cop is just that, a myth, I enjoy Sam and Twitch as our good cops for the most part.
For sure. And I mean, I think part of accepting the comic book reality of Spawn is accepting that there might be a world where there could be vaguely good cops. Although we've also seen them be not so great
That's true.
in terms of some of their extrajudicial violence and stuff like that they've done. And there's certainly, at least Sam is very okay with blackmailing Chief Banks, even if it's for the right reasons. Now, later on in this issue, what'll happen, I think in the next issue, we'll get the follow up, is that Sam does wind up handing those files over to the internal affairs investigators.
Right.
After a visit from Spawn, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah.
But this is basically the payoff of a lot of what's going on with at least some of these files. I'm sure, because we don't get the follow up to every file that's out there. There's so many files. As listeners know, files are the number one currency of power in the universe of Spawn. Files might as well be fucking vibranium in the world of Spawn.
Honestly, files in our own world cause of a lot of trouble.
I'm
Donald
concerned
Trump.
about my own files. And Donald Trump, man, he is really in deep over his files.
That's what I'm saying. Spawn is onto something. Todd knew.
That's true. This is very prescient. Jason Wynn, if Donald Trump had any effectiveness at wielding power, Jason Wynn might be a lot like him.
Just based on Todd and Greg's cartooning style, I would love for them to put Trump into get killed by like Violator or something.
That's the political cartoon we want to see. Yes.
It can be Violator in the dress of money, just ripping out Donald Trump's throat or something.
I think this is like the 5th or 6th or 9th episode where we mentioned this, but Todd, when you hear this, make that action figure. I'll be a buyer.
I will 100% buy it. You'll have 2 sales.
Yeah, that's right. So that's right. And your sales just doubled 200% over the course of one conversation. That's money, baby.
Yeah. So here Sam is kind of confronting Chief Banks and saying, like, he's referencing Blood Feud and saying, oh, man got ripped apart. That's all the sympathy you can muster. There's this tension between the two of them, and Banks is kind of like, if you have something to say, say it. And Sam is like, you'll get yours.
Yeah, he says, watch your back. And the guy says, is that a threat? And Sam says, take it however you like.
Yeah. Banks finds out that Sam has some records and stuff. And so,
other guy says, watch your back. Whatever.
Yeah, he's gonna figure out what's going on with that. And meanwhile, Sam is kind of brooding about not not being able to pull the trigger really on this Chief Burke stuff. Chief Burke? No, that's wrong. Chief Banks.
Chief Banks, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of brooding over the files and the fact that even though they have this info, they don't really have anything they can do with it yet. Twitch, though, was really appreciative of Sam for continuing the case with Kincaid while he's gone. I do love them together. Honestly, Sam and Twitch are like kind of my favorite parts of the book. I hate saying that about cops on some level, like you said, no good cops, etc. ACAB includes Sam and Twitch. But as characters, I think they're an interesting part of the book. And I think they're an interesting counterpoint to Spawn because of that Commissioner Gordon twist, which is they're not his Commissioner Gordon.
Right.
They're very much more, they're somewhere between Commissioner Gordon and J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah. And so as we move on, we check in on the alley, and Spawn's having a conversation with Cagliostro, and he's talking about, Cagliostro's letting him know, like, your suit is evolving faster than it's supposed to.
And he says they'll never let you get out of what you're supposed to be doing. A lot of Hellspawn have gone about being Hellspawn a lot of different ways, but none of them have ever gone back. However, we now have an advantage, which is your costume has evolved earlier than they expected.
Right. And, that calls back to the fact that God referred to Al as the One. And
Right.
and Al's kind of picking up on that, like, oh, is he am I something special or something like that? Like, I don't understand. Is that real? It's I love Al. He's such a dummy sometimes.
He is sometimes, especially with the concept of, as we'll see here, the secrets of his past and what it all means. I want to say I love the page in the page where we're coming into the alley with the big orange sunset
Love
sky
it.
and the silhouette of New York.
I like the weird little evil rats.
The colors, the inks, everything on this page works so well to me. The storytelling as we're going deeper and deeper into the alley, past Spawn's makeshift little doorway here. The rats, like you said, they're great. Just, this is really where the team of, like, the whole team comes together. McFarlane, Capullo, Oleoptics, Orzakowski, everybody. This is such a simple page, but there's so much charm and storytelling in it, and the craft in it is great. So, as usual, I wanted to derail us to talk about some stupid bullshit on a comic book page.
No, I love it. It's really good. I like Cagliostro's weird little happy cat on the next page, and I also like Cagliostro kind of flexing that he is also kind of not to be trifled with. When Spawn asks, like, "Oh, am I some sort of super Spawn?" and he touches him in the nose, and his parasite suit sort of freaks out. That leads us to another really cool page.
Yes. When the K7 Letha Spawn's neuroparasite suit freaks out, he has this sudden moment of memory, which has happened several times throughout this comic. This is not unprecedented that some physiological change triggers a memory for Spawn. That leads him to realizing that Jason Wynn is, of course, the one who gave the order to kill him, whereas Chapel, or as we'll learn later, perhaps someone else, pulled the trigger. Like you said, I love this page.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. I mean, I don't always love the, like, disembodied head or disembodied mouth thing, but in this context, it works pretty well as showing that, like, these are sort of fractured thoughts and, some weird stuff's going on. So that's always
Capullo
really cool.
showing his art background here with some of these nice spiral ratios. And it also calls back to some of Todd's early work, even back in
Like
not
issue
just
one.
early in Spawn, but even early when he was doing Infinity Inc. and stuff like that. He did a lot of these conceptual, very artistic pages, and I think we saw some of this from Capullo in the Houdini arc.
Yes, we did.
That wasn't that good.
No.
It kind of didn't work. This rips. I love this page. It just, like you said, elements that don't always work come together here as Spawn has this spiral of memory. I like the very melodramatic, like, oh, A heartbeat later, the images retreat. Spawn is unsettled, but his neural parasite costume is invigorated. The symbiotic livery, thriving on the sensory input, is pumped and ready for its next challenge. Its host, though, is thoroughly white.
I like that the parasite remembers things better than Al does,
It
and
does.
is like, yo, let's fucking go. Let's fucking go. We
The
got a mission.
parasite is amped up.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
Cagliostro was just talking about how good Spawn's gotten at killing as Spawn again.
Yeah.
And that's a double-edged sword for him. And we know why, because his mission is to send people to hell.
The new
Turn
suit
them
looks
into his
really cool
own.
here, even though it's such a simple panel and it's not like a hero pose. But
No,
the
it does,
huge
though.
gauntlet like looks so sick.
Yeah, one big bracer, one big boot. I love it. And the cape looks great. This look is really evolving, and I love that. And also, one thing that I love that's evolving is Todd's inks on Capullo. They're getting better and better.
I agree. I think when he's not leaning too hard into inking every single little line,
Right.
it's better. Also, this is one of the first issues where we're really seeing that separation between in the credits between pencils and inks.
I was
And
just thinking about that.
I think that is, we've talked a lot about trying to figure out the art breakdown, and it feels like if Todd was doing, breakdowns first, then Capullo's drawing over them, and then it's getting inked. So then it's kind of Todd pencils,
Right.
very Todd influenced pencils, whereas here they feel more like collaborators.
Very
And
much, yeah.
Capullo's style is coming into his own. We've seen him with a number of inkers at this point, and this image of Spawn is where I'm like, ooh,
The
oh,
colors are also really working
yeah,
throughout this whole sequence. I think they're a little pulled back in a lot of places throughout these issues. There are some blue captions that Orzakowski does that I really like that are a little bit of a change of pace from the usual eerie green.
but
But anyway, Cagliostro leaves him, telling him now that he's remembered all that shit, his mission should be clear. And we get this little jump to Jason Wynn and Terry Fitzgerald at the office of the CIA in New York, which, by the way, we've rarely addressed this. That's not in New York, I don't think.
no, it's not.
No.
But I guess, the CIA are like secret agents, kind of, right? So if they did have an office in New York, maybe we wouldn't know.
Well, but everybody in this universe does, and we'll get to
That's
that
true.
because something big happens. But he's basically telling Terry Fitzgerald to head up the reorganization of their data security systems because there's too many leaking files. It all comes back to these files.
Yep. And then Banks is calling Jason Wynn to be like, oh, I don't know, somebody knows something. I don't know what it is, but it seems bad. What do I
How do I
do?
handle
What do I
this? Yeah.
do? And Jason Wynn's just like, yo, this isn't just like your stupid coworker, your colleague didn't get this stuff. Like, Spawn gave me a file, so
Yeah.
Spawn must have given him a file. Like, put two and two together. Thank you, Jason
Yeah.
Wynn, for just understanding
Doing
what's
what
going on.
Al Simmons could never. This
Yeah.
is showing why he's Al's boss.
Yeah.
Al can't get from point A to point B without going through point F, K, J, L, R. So like I love this panel. These long panels are nice, but I love this panel of Jason Wynn's shadow being cast
Oh yeah, the third
over
one.
his whole office, calling back to his massive window.
I was just gonna say it's like exactly his massive window panel, but done a little bit differently. Very, very cool. I think later on in the arc they mention that there's very little light in his office, which is really, really funny too. We're gonna cut over to Wanda and Cyan and Grandma Blake. Cyan looking a little bit like a nightmare.
Her face is not great.
It's a cute little like she's on the phone because her mom's on the phone.
Yeah, I love the
That's
little
fun.
tableau of Wanda sitting there looking at a magazine, talking on the phone with Grandma Blake. Cyan sitting next to her with her coloring book and her little play phone, basically mimicking her, which is a very relatable situation. Honestly, anytime we get to Wanda and Cyan in any of these comics, and in these issues it happens a few times, it just feels like slices of Todd McFarlane's life with his wife and daughters,
Yeah.
where it's just like little funny family things like Maybe that's even a Capullo thing from his family, or maybe it's just that generalized, but it's a nice little touch. And we're learning that Grandma Blake, who is on the phone with Wanda, of course, had her financial troubles cleared up. Her dead husband's pension was released to her, so she'll continue receiving it, which is vital for her to stay in her house.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good for Grandma Blake. I like her.
Well, we think it's good. We'll learn later that there's going to be a lot of financial windfall throughout the Fitzgerald Blake household, and it's coming from Jason Wynn.
Yeah,
So this
well,
is
we kind of find out right on this page because Wanda
yeah,
lets her know, like, oh, we got a huge donation for the shelter. We find out by the
yes,
end that this is Jason Wynn creeping into, every aspect of their life. So,
yes.
which good. He's a government guy. That's what he's supposed to do.
You want the government in every aspect of your life,
Yeah, it's better that way.
or none. Is it one or the other? Nothing in the
It's just
middle. We check back in with Sam and Twitch, and basically Sam is learning from one of the other cops that Chief Banks is leading a hit squad into Spawn's alley. And Sam and Twitch are like, well, what the shit? He has no idea what he's walking into. We've got to go get him. I love Twitch running off with the cane and the arm in the sling. The cartooning of them running is so good. Just Pete Capullo. Man, I'm really turning into a fan of old Greg Capullo.
yeah. I mean, I've been a fan, but also, I've already spoken about how I'm mostly engaged with his Batman work his X-Men, and then kind of skipped over the middle, which is all of Spawn. And
Right.
It feels like this is where he really cut his teeth and became the artist that many know and love today. And yeah, it's great to see it. There's so much fun stuff here.
I think that's the power of a really great artist, like a great artist, and not just a good artist, is a great artist. You can look at their art at any point in their career, and even if it's a little different, you'll see something in it that hints at that greatness that makes you want to see more of it. And going back to some of these developmental years for Capullo, like you said, really working for me, really seeing it come together. And it's making me want to revisit some of his other work that I haven't dug into as much. So big ups, Greg Capullo.
Hell yeah. We have to try to get Greg on the show at some point. I'm sure we can. He seems very nice. We can talk about his Wolverine.
I would have to not do Greg
I think
on this show.
I hope that we'll have to tell him about that in case he ever listens to the show. So I hope he does George Marston.
That'd be amazing. I would love that. It's absolutely out of love.
No, I know.
I do not do that to mock him. I think it's incredible. He's cultivated a persona that is. I think the thing that's so. I hate to keep going on about Greg Capullo here, but I'll sum this up. Greg Capullo very quickly is, and I've told stories about this before, so I won't go into it too much. He's just cultivated this personality with fans and other people in the industry that he's a nice guy to work with and a nice guy to be around, and he's kind to people, and at the same time he has that like badass like metalhead guy vibe. And I just love the mashup of those two things. Even when I wasn't a super fan of his art, even when that was still not clicking with me, the guy I think is great.
Hell yeah. So Sam and Twitch, they're off to the alley. We get to the alley and the police are menacing the night people.
Yeah, busting heads.
It sucks. But the night people, as they're wont to do, are protecting Spawn. They know that he shouldn't be messed with. And similarly, Al's kind of nearby watching all this happen.
He's got the classic like Raphael or Ben Grimm like trench coat and hat going on, covering up his massive cape as he's sitting there watching. I love that no one ever notices like the guy with just glowing green eyes under a hat that's also basked in shadow. Like,
shouldn't the cape be able to become the jacket?
That would be awesome. That's kind of like Gunslinger Spawn, right? Where his cape is more like a duster.
It's like a duster, yeah.
That's
like cool. A cool duster.
Yeah. Why is he wearing that duster?
Um,
So,
but
yeah.
Al, as in life as a CIA trained assassin, Al Simmons lived for these moments.
Hell yeah, he did. And
They're what gave him a purpose, what made him whole.
I love Spawn busting out of the trench coat, like the cape just flowing out as the trench coat falls down, and he's doing the like rock hand at the bottom there,
Yeah, it's
like
good.
that giant gauntlet. Ah, I love the way the spikes look. It's great. That's cool. This is one of the best looking issues of Spawn yet. One of the best looking two-parters. I think that team up of Capullo pencils, McFarlane inks that will become kind of the working method, I think it's great.
Yeah, it's working really well. I even really like the next page. We get, Banks noticing that there's a fence where there shouldn't be one. He knocks it down with a kick. I like, or Zakowski giving, like, splitting up the sound effect,
Around his foot.
around the foot, crash. I like the look at the eyes here. The panel that is a little less impactful, unfortunately, is of the throne. The throne, like, it looks like kind of sad.
It looks like it's been toilet papered a
Yeah.
little bit. And I get the impression that it's maybe covered with a sheet or something,
Yeah,
but
it's something like that.
it's just kind of tucked away in the corner of the panel.
It's not as glorious as we usually see it.
I think that little moment could have been more impactful, yeah. But they go in, and sure enough, who finds Spawn but the two officers accompanying Chief Banks, much to their chagrin, as Spawn basically conks their heads together and then sneaks up on Chief Banks, who is like, "Oh my God, for Christ's sakes, where's Jensen and Smith?" And Spawn says, "Alive. That's enough,"
Hell
which
yeah.
is cool. And he says, "I told you to stay away from me and your men. Didn't the file mean anything? Are you that suicidal? Don't you know about Suicide by File?" Suicide File, great band.
That'd be a pretty good band name.
It is a band.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you learn something new every day. This is where Spawn's going to find out that Sam didn't do what he asked. He did not.
Yes.
He did not deliver the file to anybody. He just kind of held on to it, and
Yeah, he's been trying to use it to blackmail Chief Banks on his own, or trying to figure out what to do with it. And because of this moment, Spawn's gonna pay a visit to them later on. Here, first though, we have this little standoff. I love the increasingly tense panels on the bottom of that page where Sam and Twitch are basically aiming a shotgun at everyone and revealing that they know about Kincaid. And the funny thing about this is Spawn seems surprised to learn that Chief Banks was involved with Kincaid.
yeah, did he
Even
not
though
read?
Spawn's the one who gave the files, maybe he didn't read the whole thing. Maybe he just knew these are the files that are important. Because Spawn hasn't necessarily alluded to that before, I don't think, but it's still
Maybe
interesting.
Spawn
Still
is
a little
like
funny.
Todd. Maybe he doesn't read.
Maybe he doesn't read the files. Didn't read the files. He didn't catch up on the back issues before he was involved in this scene.
But yeah, this is where Spawn's going to find out that Wynn is involved and Wynn is connected, which again he could have found.
Well.
To Kincaid, but I guess he could have found that out if he just read the files way earlier.
I love this sequence at the bottom, though. The panel's getting increasingly tight as it goes across the bottom, where Sam is pointing the shotgun at Spawn, and Spawn is threatening Chief Banks across the bottom of that page. Next to, and then it culminates in Banks basically just whispering, "It was Wynn." And like the tension of that storytelling is just great.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff, and it leads to then this sort of continued standoff between Sam and Twitch and Spawn just being like, "Bro, guns don't hurt me." But Sam makes a good point. He's like, "Yeah, well, if I blow your head off your shoulders, it'll at least slow you down."
Yeah, you're not going to run away.
Yeah.
And Spawn lashes out with his chains and disappears.
Which, sure, I guess.
And then we
How
cut
fast
straight
is he?
to, yeah, it's, very, apparently. Uh, not challenging Henry Zabrowski for fastest man within 10 feet. Um, some of the pacing in these issues, and this is an example here going into this next page. There's just a page here of 2 pages of Terry and Wanda and Cyan. There's a lot of like, suddenly now we're here. Whereas I feel like a lot of the issues in the past, one of the strengths has been, in many cases, transitioning from scene to scene,
Yeah.
though it's also been a weakness. And here I think that's one of the few weaknesses, I think, in the storytelling in this art.
It does feel like we don't need to check in with Wanda, Cyan, and Terry here, except that obviously they are important to this story. It just feels like they're so separate from the action that there's no. Todd didn't find an easy way to involve them,
Right.
you know?
And Terry here is explaining to Wanda his work stuff, which, credit to Terry, he is involving her in his work affairs by at least telling her about his secret government business.
Mhm.
Like, and he's basically saying, now that I'm in Wynn's inner circle, I can figure out if he's being set up or if there's something more going on with these files. And he has to play it close to the vest and play it safe because of the files, because he's stealing from his new boss. And Wanda basically just says, we can't afford to let him know what you've been doing behind his back, which makes his friendliness towards you even creepier. And here's where she reveals that the place she works, the hospital she works at the care ward, just got a huge donation, which is also Jason Wynn money.
Yeah.
And the pattern that's forming is Jason Wynn is basically removing these financial obstacles in their life. And you get the impression that he is trying to close a net so that when the time comes, he can reveal to Terry, hey, all those financial problems that cleared up, that was me. And I can put them back on your plate put them back on your plate just as fast.
I think also it's maybe when sort of wondering, hey, if I take these away, does this guy leave me alone?
Right.
I think that's the other side of it is, does it confirm his suspicions, right?
Right.
Which is, all right, if I take this thing away and I make things a little bit easier, does this guy stop hounding me? And then now I know for sure that it was him because I fixed his
Right.
life. And now, exactly like you said, I can kind of entrap him.
It's a multi-layered control scheme that we can see as readers,
Yeah.
but Terry won't see for a while yet, I don't think. We get another little family moment here where he's holding Cyan and she's kicking. He's laying on his back. Terry is laying on his back, holding Cyan above his head, and she's kicking her legs. And he's like, "Be careful!" And then she kicks him right in the balls, and we get this like big reaction panel of his eyes, and Cyan's going, "I'll do that. Me again. Do again." And that has to have happened to Todd McFarlane.
It must have. But
That
also,
did happen to Todd McFarlane. I will go on record.
it, I it, this is also like the fart jokes with the night people in the alleys. It's just like a weird beat that you're like, yeah, I guess this can be
It's just
here.
Todd
Sure.
reminding you he still likes a good nut shot or a good fart joke or whatever. He's still a Canadian with a sense of humor, eh? So, I don't mind it overall. Like,
No,
again,
that's fine.
he's getting better at these human moments. I think Capullo is a little more interesting at drawing some of them. The
Yeah, I
storytelling
think
here is
that
good.
some of the shot choices here are a little weird. Like this Terry Fitzgerald looks unrecognizable,
Yes,
but that's okay.
I guess I just like the family vibe of it all,
Yeah, I think it's fun. I think it's fun. I think that's it. I think it helps underline what Al's missing, right? And we're gonna get to that on the very next page as Al has headed to see Jason Wynn and kind of confront him. And Jason Wynn says, "What do you want?" And he says, "Everything. My wife, my life, normality." Uh, and Wynn's like, what are you?" And he says, "Exactly what you made me, nothing." And it next to a scene like that family scene, it is a little bit more impactful. So
Yeah,
to that end, I like it.
that's true. And I love this Jason Wynn page. I love the cigar framing the shot there
Yeah.
on that top panel. I love the middle panel. Spawn's face with his jaw jutting out and like the fucking like inks. on his face, all gnarly. It's great. Very menacing and cool looking Spawn. Yeah, I think that we're getting into the territory where we're getting that like definitive Spawn look that's going to be there for most of his like bulk of what we know of Spawn at this point.
Yeah. And so Spawn is trying to find out why he was killed, essentially. Why did Wynn have him taken out? Why was he assassinated? And Wynn is like, dude, you're insane, and like, what are you talking about? And
Doesn't get it.
Spawn knows he's lying. Yeah, he doesn't know who he is. So Spawn is like, what makes this even more sickening is that you still haven't a clue who I am. The pool of blood you swim in has diluted your memory. That's good. Good job, Todd. That's fun.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Then he just snaps. He just snaps Jason Wynn's arm. Just goodbye hand.
Yeah, rips his arm off.
And I love this time you learn something. They can't kill what's already dead panel. Fucking
Spawn
rules.
is so menacing through this whole sequence.
The shoelace really helps. I think
It does.
shoelace face is peak. I love
Having
it. It's
that
so good.
break up like the area, like just giving you more indicators of his face with the teeth and eyes. It's so creepy. And I love his hand here. Like Capullo does great Spawn claws.
Yeah. I like how Wynn's hand is sort of echoing it as well.
Mm-hmm. A lot of that hand language. Capullo, much like Todd McFarlane, very good at that hand stuff.
Yeah. And then this leads to a big reveal on the final page,
Mm-hmm.
which is that Terry is the one who is leading Wynn's forces, because Spawn doesn't know that Terry took a job with Wynn. And so as much as he understands it, Terry is allied with Jason Wynn.
He's attacking Jason, and Terry busts in with his whole squad of troops. And that panel where Spawn recognizes him, that's a great panel. Great Spawn face again. The shoelace, once again, adds some, the angling of the shoelace really is almost like Spider-Man's eyes or whatever, where they show a little bit of that like sadness or like surprise or anger, like very jagged in that top panel and like kind of downward, like fang-like. And then here they're more arched and we're seeing it from the upward angle. So they're almost like eyebrows going up his face. It just adds a lot of character.
Yeah. I also really love Wynn's face on the very last page, where he's just had his hand ripped off. He did not react to that. And now he's smiling at Al.
Still super smug about it.
Yeah.
And Terry is just like casually standing there with a gun. And Spawn, once again, doing the rock hands. And the thing that's fun about it to me is, if this were a drawing of Batman, that's where he'd be holding the Batarang, right?
Yeah. It's the same silhouette, basically.
Exactly.
It's great.
So that's the end of Spawn 35, and next issue is Betrayal and Pain. And just for good measure, we get a quick check-in. Last little moment of the issue is a check-in with the power bar, which is now at 6887. Spawn's used quite a bit of his power, getting close to 50%, and we're not even 50 issues in.
Yeah, I think it has been at 6887 for a little bit. It's just nice to see 50%. It. Yeah.
What am I talking about?
Well,
my mind is
it's
bad
at 68%, basically. It's getting closer to 50%. You're right.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Once again, I'm bad at numbers. I second guess myself a lot. So anyway, don't hire me as your accountant.
I wasn't planning on it, thank God. Yeah. So this is going to lead us to Spawn number 36, setup part 2. And you know what's great? The credits are exactly the same. So I'm not going to read them again. This one is dedicated to John Costanza. John Costanza, he was an artist and letterer, worked at Marvel and DC. He was the letterer for Alan Moore's acclaimed run on Swamp Thing.
Oh, okay, great.
But the bulk of his art assignments have been for anthropomorphic animal comics and children-oriented material.
Well,
like Heathcliff, the Get Along Gang, the Hug a Bunch.
Okay.
Animaniacs, Roger Rabbit, and Mickey Mouse.
Well, that's very fun.
And he's also drawn some issues of the Simpsons comics.
Okay, so a lot of like animation comics. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, That's fun. Boy, this first page of issue 36 is a page like we haven't gotten in a while in Spawn, which is just a massive wall of text telling us everything that's ever happened in Spawn up to this point, and a big close up of Spawn's face. It's a lot.
We've talked about this before, but I love when Spawn comics happen seconds after the previous Spawn comic.
It's
And
very Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, it's very much like this one actually also has a Spawn number 35 summary on the credits page, which we've never gotten before.
Incredible. That's really something. Especially because we get the Spawn entire life summary on this next page,
Yeah.
just explaining who Al Simmons is.
If this was your first issue, you're good to go.
What's on the cover? Is it an issue that would I'm for those who are catching up, I am reading in trade and Pierce has the originals. I mean, that is a sick cover of Spawn chasing after Wanda in the alley.
Yeah, she's like falling. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
he looks cool.
Cover. So, wow, my voice sure cracked.
There's a lot of rats in this alley.
Rat alley, Rat City.
Rats don't run the city, we do.
That's right. But yeah, it's just a standard like Al Simmons, world famous murderer, killed by Jason Wynn, sent to hell, made deal, lost wife, lost everything. Thought he was going to make things better by killing Jason Wynn. I do like this last bit. He had hoped to make Wynn's death excruciatingly slow. Revenge was all Al had left. He had hoped it would bring a momentary respite from this nightmare. But now instead, things have become even more unbearable.
Yeah. Then he yells, "You traitor," at Terry.
You traitor.
And Terry kind of says, like, listen, stand down, keep your hands where I can see them. And this is where Terry is trying to sort of explain that he's on Al's side, even though he doesn't know it's Al. And he says, killing him won't give us any more answers. He's more valuable alive.
Yeah, and Jason Wynn hates that.
And Wynn is just like, what are you doing? Please just shoot him.
Yeah, he says, I'm taking over command of this unit and I'm giving you orders to fire. And basically, they open fire on Spawn. Spawn starts throwing file cabinets from the shadows, which incredible move if you can pull it off. I love the panel at the top of all the line of dudes blasting guns. It is very like X-Force-y.
So here's where Capullo forgot which hand got ripped off. So at the bottom of the page, we see, with Spawn's eyes in the background, we see his right hand, but he points with his left hand at the next panel.
So he does. Does. Well, I guess I'll have to throw this whole fucking thing away.
We do see a file cabinet blindsiding the troops because
the very source of the files.
Yeah, from the shadows. Because as I mentioned, Terry Fitzgerald is standing defiantly in what little light there is in Jason Wynn's CIA office. He throws the filing cabinet, and then Spawn's just like, I'm out of here. And he grabs Wynn, who has two hands again.
So maybe
somehow.
He didn't get it ripped off. Maybe it just looked like it.
The thing is, it really does look like it.
Like he rips it off. It was pretty clear.
Yeah.
So who knows?
And he jumps out the window. Looks cool. Big boot, big gauntlet.
Yes. This 2-page sequence is great. The Spawn on both pages is really good. Loving this costume. Capullo really nails the posing on the right-hand side where he's holding up the big thing of a wreckage and basically saying, like, I didn't want your pain to end quickly. And Wynn is saying, who are you? And Spawn is basically just tearing at him. He says, someone who got in your way, who didn't count. And as Spawn is chasing Wynn, I guess he must have broken his arm because he's holding his arm like close to his body.
I'm looking at the panel. Maybe it says Wynn's arm breaks like a twig. It says snap, and it's just Spawn holding a hand from like the wrist.
Yeah, maybe it's.
And then there's blood at the bottom of it. Maybe that's miscolored, but
yeah, maybe it's just a misdrawn panel or whatever. Either way, basically, Spawn chases him into this office. Jason Wynn interrupts the security guard who comes in and takes his gun and shoots the security guard and blames Spawn. Seems like he didn't need to do that, all things considered, that Spawn had taken him from his office and broken
Yeah.
in. Spawn was already on the run. But basically, I said basically a lot right there. This next sequence is very Batman Year One to me, where it's Spawn going on the run throughout the CIA headquarters and the agents chasing him, shooting him.
This is
He
where this book turns into like an action movie, and I love it. Like
Yeah.
we talk a lot about the potential Spawn movie. Put this in there.
I was just thinking that. I was just thinking, are they going to do this sequence in the Spawn movie? Because this is very cinematic to me.
Super cinematic. It's so quick. Like
Him-
we're breezing through pages because it's a chase scene. And
The art looks great, by the way. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to undersell because we're not looking at every panel like we sometimes do, but like, it's just a big long chase scene. He's jumping through water towers. Spawn's all soaking wet. He gets cornered by helicopters on top of the building next door to the CIA building, like attack helicopters. A bunch of trans people flying around.
I love cannonball like Spawn. Like
Yes.
I like that Capullo is able to like sort of ball him up, and that he adds so much sort of intentionality to his body language and energy to it that I really respond to while I'm reading it. I have to read these pages quickly because, well, thankfully Todd does not bog them down with too much dialogue or narration, but they feel fast, you know?
Yes. These 2 pages where the attack helicopters corner Spawn on what we later learn is the Merrill Lynch building.
Yeah.
And basically they lock the target and fire missiles at the top of the fucking Merrill Lynch
In the middle of
building.
Manhattan.
The middle of Manhattan. Government helicopters do this where anyone could see. And it explodes. We get Spawn's power bar. It's a little different. I'm assuming that means that he escaped somehow with his powers, is the implication.
Yeah, it's weird. Usually we only see the power bar when he's used it up a little bit. But
Right.
here I think they're just like reminding us. However, I do think that it's part of what Cagliostro was saying earlier. Yo, your suit has gotten more evolved. And it was something that Cagliostro said to him early on. Use the power in the suit.
Yeah.
Don't use your power meter. The suit is a resource. And so I think that that's maybe what's trying to be. That's kind of my no prize explanation for it.
Right.
Is
And Blood Feud kind of touches on that a little bit. We got
Yeah.
into that with the vampire stuff, that whole comparison thing. But this is bonkers. So they blow up the top of the Merrill Lynch building. And the next page is Sam and Twitch like getting mad that their boss, they sent the files to internal affairs and Chief Banks basically got off scot-free. They're complaining that it took them less time to let him off the hook than it did to even investigate the Billy Kincaid situation with them, and there was way more stuff to go into. It's pretty clear that Jason Wynn or whoever is someone up the chain is pulling the strings to keep Chief Banks out of trouble. He comes in and basically, boy, I'm saying basically so much tonight.
It's okay.
He comes in and squares off with Sam and kind of dresses him down, tells him, you took a swung at the chief and you missed. You know, you're never gonna, I can't fire you because of the scrutiny that's on me.
Watch your ass.
Wash your ass. And we get the biggest Twitch moment here. Twitch goes the fuck off, bucks up to him, puts his face right in his chin, puts his finger right in his chest, and basically just says, screw you. If you threaten us again, it's a long speech. And it's really good. He says, if you threaten us again, I'll put a fucking bullet in your eyes.
He has a copy of the file.
Yes, he has a copy of the file, yes.
Yeah, and he's ready to send it out to the news, all the news stations, so that even if the police are corrupt and they're not doing anything about it because IA is in Chief Banks's back pocket, like he's going to make sure that people know what's going on. I
And
do like Sam just being like, "Go get him, Twitch."
yeah, he's just like his eyes. He's got those doe eyes. Like Twitch is the greatest. This is very funny, and this whole thing, they're just like looking out the window, talking kind of casually about everything. Well, the Merrill Lynch building was attacked by government choppers.
It's fine. Just another day in New York.
It is, sadly, and I mean,
Listeners
they didn't have
who've
Mayor
never
Eric
been.
Adams.
Yeah. Oh boy, don't get me started. Listeners who've never been in New York, we deal with this all the time. Just another day. The choppers don't run
the
this city.
Avengers
We
live
do.
there.
That's true. The
Yeah.
Avengers live here. You know, the Fantastic Four. It was
Spider-Man.
pretty fucked up when Hell tried to like invade, but you know, I got into a fight with a demon vacuum cleaner.
Well, I'm glad you survived. That must have sucked.
Thanks. You ever read that issue of Daredevil? Also,
Yes,
that was
I did.
that was a good vacuum pun.
I used to work in a vacuum store. I did. I used to repair and sell vacuums. We talked about that in our episode with Lamb. Anyway,
We did. I cut that.
Not important. I used to work in a vacuum store.
It's fine. I'll leave it in this time.
We have a check-in with Grandma, and they're talking about how glad they are that they're spending more time together, but Grandma's sad that Terry couldn't make it, and he knows how busy he is, but Wanda's basically saying he's working late. That's going to come up again in a minute.
Yeah.
Now we get our talking heads. And this, dear listener, this is where the Spawn universe separates itself forever from anything resembling reality. People talk about like the gritty reality superhero comics of like Christopher Nolan and superhero movies of Christopher Nolan. And like you look at those and it's like, okay, well, they're not that realistic. This is where the gritty reality of Spawn launches itself into the stratosphere with these talking heads. The first one is talking about the live coverage of the bombing at Merrill Lynch and the reported assault on the CIA headquarters next door. And basically, again, and she's saying that sources are hopeful no one died because that part of the building was empty. And they're saying that it was a terrorist group that staged an attack because of rejecting the president's Middle East policies.
Weirdly prescient in 2024, considering that people are not super happy about our current president's Middle East policies.
Not for the last like 50
years. Yeah.
So,
it's nothing new.
Nothing, but it's pretty bad right now.
What is interesting here is though that they're not talking about the helicopters. They're specifically like it was a bombing in the building. There was
somebody says later they think it was triggered when they saw the helicopters.
Yeah, it's vague and weird.
Well, and that's what the E Entertainment guy gets into. E Entertainment here getting into this, talking about this was not long after the Oklahoma City bombing,
right?
Which of course,
that guy's name again? Todd?
Timothy McVeigh. Timothy McVeigh. This is a true story. This is true. Was inspired to do the bombing because he loved the movie Star Wars, and he saw himself as Luke Skywalker blowing up the Death Star. That is true.
George, what are you talking about?
That is 100% true. Timothy McVeigh, massive Star Wars fan, saw himself as the Luke Skywalker of the racist revolution and saw him planting a bomb outside the government building in Oklahoma City as his Death Star run. I wish that wasn't true.
No, honestly, it tracks for Star Wars fans. Star Wars.
One more reason Star Trek is better. Am I about to start a whole new podcast right now?
It's a William Shatner. The William Shatner of it all. Is
No.
Next
I would like to see him
generation.
fight Gina Carano.
Are you a Deep Space Nine?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I
Deep
figured you were a
Space
Deep
Nine's
Space Nine.
really gay, bud.
Yeah.
My dream life would be running a comic book store on Deep Space Nine, selling 20th century comics.
I feel like we're eventually they'll do something with Star Trek where there's a comic book store on the space station or something.
There'll be some comic book thing involved somewhere.
Well,
Anyway,
actually, there won't be. Here's how I know. Here's how I know that Star Trek is set in a utopia. There's no comics.
that one turning point is what fixed society.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as like superhero movies stopped happening and people stopped, complaining that I don't know, their favorite character got turned gay or into a woman.
Marvel goes broke enough, gets so woke they do go broke.
Well,
the year 3095 after
they get bought by Space Toy Biz though.
Hell yeah. So then we get the KSTD-34 guy, the usual reactionary guy. He's basically calling the whole thing out and basically saying that anyone who thinks it's unrelated or that the helicopters aren't involved is a stooge. And he's like, we didn't elect these guys because of didn't we elect these guys because the previous guys were claiming, quote, deniability too often, which might be, probably a direct reference to, the fact that George H.W. Bush and Ronald Reagan were involved in like Iran-Contra and other shit.
And also President Clinton did not have sex with that woman.
Well, it depends on what the definition of is.
It's
Still
true.
Can't piece that one together. So we catch up with Jason Wynn, whose arms are broken but attached in this hospital bed, and he's basically being told that all his government contacts are selling him out. This is too fucked up, too hot. He is on a downward spiral, they say, or he's in free fall, and he's got no parachute. And just as he thinks he's alone, just as he thinks they're all out of the room, and he's basically saying like, they don't know who they're messing with.
And he's finally able to get to sleep.
Yeah, he's finally falling asleep. Who should show up but Clown?
Good old Wormfoot.
Wormfoot. Good old, and he's got his little wormy feet. This is a great drawing of Clown.
Yeah,
Clown
I like him.
Crouched on the desk. The one time I saw Jonan Vasquez, who created
Invader Zim,
Johnny
the Homicidal Maniac.
The Homicidal Maniac. I saw him at a convention. It was WonderCon in San Francisco. He was the SLG booth, and he was literally perched just like that on a stool behind the booth with his like trench coat hanging down over the stool, just like literally creeping like a little gargoyle. And I was like, wow, that's true goth. Just like Clown here, who's reminding Jason Wynn that they kind of have a deal in that Clown has threatened him into basically saying, I know everything and I'll do worse than what Spawn can do if you don't help me. But if you do,
especially now because he can turn back into like his Violator form.
Yes, his Fleabyism has been restored.
Also, Jonas Vasquez should do a Spawn comic.
That'd be sick.
That I know they have like the
should do a Violator comic. That'd be awesome.
That'd be sick also. But they have the Spawn kills everyone and Spawn kills every Spawn books. Those like chibi Spawn. They look insane and not good, but to me, I'm sure that somebody out there likes them. I would love for Jonan Vasquez to draw something like that, though.
Amazing.
Anyway.
So he's basically, Clown says, like, just keep pushing Spawn, but keep your distance, because if you push too hard, he will fucking just kill you. He doesn't care. He has nothing to lose.
Yeah, and I like this because this is Clown / Violator re-upping on his purpose.
Yeah.
Which is to be sort of Al's handler a little bit. He's kind of re-upping on his, job with Malbolgia. Right. So, yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, and I Clown's growing on me the more we've seen him, and especially, honestly, the Violator limited series was pretty fun.
We had a good time. Reading that.
The fucking ooh Violator.
Oh no! I had to show that
on a button.
I showed that to Vanessa. She was like, "Why is he drooling?" And I was like, "No, I don't know."
Well, because he's been looking at the uncensored tab on Blue Sky.
Yeah,
something like that. I might have said that same thing.
I think you made the
Um,
exact same
I
joke.
probably
I
did
was
make the
editing
exact
today,
same joke.
so I heard it. But we're gonna transition again. We're just sort of jumping from place to place here, but we're gonna transition to Wanda at home, and
She's thinking to
she's
herself that
thinking
maybe
about
she should
weird
check
things.
the messages.
I don't know. This is a situation where I think like we don't need these thought bubbles. We don't need them to be narration. We don't really need the thought bubbles either.
I mean, they're just setting up the moment later on the quote that we did at the beginning when Terry calls Wanda and she gets the
Yeah.
message and it said she missed the message. It's just another one of those things that just seems like an added step. It's fine, but again, also she's saying, I wish that Terry would remember to hang up the phone. It's a cordless phone. Back in the day, you had a cordless phone and it sat in a handset and
Had to
it
charge it.
charged on the handset. But Wanda's the one who is sitting on the floor talking on the phone. Women be talking. I be talking.
I fix it. Yeah,
I actually don't. Don't call me. I hate it.
I do love the panel of Spawn showing up. I think it's really
Yes, the
good.
door, the ding dong, and then she's like, "Who the hell could that be?" And the door opens, and there's Spawn looking like a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, he looks
All
cool.
Nosferatu.
He looks
Very
cool.
Nosferatu.
This is a super like EC Comics horror panel type panel.
Mm-hmm.
The monster shows up and the woman screams, and it's really, really good. Oh, you know what I found out weirdly? This has nothing to do with anything. Louise Simonson was the model for a cover of Swamp Thing
Amazing.
that
She can do it all.
that Bernie Wrightson drew.
She can do anything.
I know. I love
I'm
Louise
just-
Simonson.
I
Anyway,
hope she has never said or done anything bad in her life because
I think she's only done good things like X
Good.
Factor.
good. I'm gonna keep
Well, Bird Brain.
that. We'll forgive it.
Yeah,
fine.
it's fine.
I like one thing I really like about that panel. It is very horror movie, but I like that instead of Spawn looking kind of heroic, he does look creepy and weird, and that gives the viewer Wanda's perspective on it. It
Yeah.
shows us why she's terrified. It's not like Spawn showed up looking like Superman. He showed up looking like Count Orlok, all hunched over with his cape, all like creepy. And she's like, "What the fuck?" And she's like, "Stay away from me."
I love
And-
the next page because those panels do the same thing. That the tenseness of these panels at the top and the
Yes.
quickness of them is
Yes,
similar
I
to
like
what
the
we
red
saw.
outline, the border.
Yeah, similar to what we saw earlier, right? Where
It is.
feels really tense. I love the close-ups. You know, just her eye and that one, the phone, her
His hand
mouth.
touching her hand.
Yeah.
It's a great little sequence. And I want to go ahead and actually say I like that Greg Capullo didn't draw it very cheesecakey. Wanda in the past has often tended to be just like in a negligee, you know?
Yeah. I think even earlier in this one, it almost feels like it's like that, but she seems to be wearing like a jumper, like a romper type deal.
Yeah.
But it's not too
Capullo takes a
sexualized.
little more care to make it less like she's just like chilling in lingerie, like
Yeah.
a cliche or something,
Yeah.
like just waiting for the plumber and the pizza man to show up.
Yeah, she's just wearing like yoga pants and a tank top. That's the end of the day.
Dressed normal. And basically Spawn is like, "Don't scream. I just want to talk." She's saying, "Please don't hurt me." And he's saying, "I just want a minute of your time, but you can't yell." And he says, "Listen to me. This is about Terry. He's not what you think. He's deceived both of us. He lied. You can't run away from that." What he's talking about is, of course, that Terry is working directly with Jason Wynn. But Wanda knows that. And what she knows that Spawn doesn't know is that Terry is not Jason Wynn's lapdog.
Right.
He's there for the same reason, theoretically, that Spawn is, although they haven't drawn this whole connection yet.
I do
Now,
like
Spawn's about to try that. Go ahead.
I do like that here Al is really trying to communicate with her and say like, "I am Al." I mean, he doesn't straight up say that, but
Right.
she does put two and two together. He does it in a much more dramatic, like, "Oh, he doesn't love you like I do," type thing, which also sounds insane. So it's understandable that she's afraid.
Spawn's off the rails here, and I like this scene for that reason, because First off, he says one of the first things he says to her to get her to recognize him is, "Don't you remember I said I'd never hurt you?" Calling back to that one panel in that one story from way back, where he says, "All right,"
Yeah.
he says, "I never hurt you again." Calling back to that one story from Spawn Across America, or the one panel in that story where he makes reference to having hit her once.
We are going to find out that actually that panel is a memory implanted by Mammon.
Mm.
And I think that that's a good bit to redeem Al and make him a little bit more likable. So we do find out that like a villain put that in his head,
Right, and
which actually helps her confusion.
right, because she's like, "What are you saying?"
Yeah.
And now, right now, obviously, I think this is being written without that.
This is
yet. Way
dozens
before.
of issues later, but
Yeah. But she's saying, "No, you're not my husband. He's dead. Stop torturing me, please. He's dead. He's dead." And Spawn is basically just like going off the rails, being like, before he doesn't even stop to say, like, "Please, it's me." He just starts spewing facts about Al Simmons. Al Simmons, famous murderer, world's sexiest man. We got married. Grandma Blake. It even says, like, he just starts spewing facts faster than anyone.
But the thing is, he doesn't say any of that.
No, he does.
It
Well,
comes to mind, but it says any of which can make her believe. And then before he says anything,
you're right. It says
Cyan
it comes to mind.
in. Yeah. It's a subtle bit of storytelling that I actually really, really, really like, because I think as a reader,
slightly.
yeah, it's okay. I think as a reader, we're thinking like, dude, there's a million things that you could say to her. Make her remember.
Yeah, of course.
And it's again this like moment of tension.
Like,
and I love
anything kind.
Yeah, and I love her crying and like kind of looking over her shoulder, and she looks really scared. And also I love that she says, you aren't my husband, he's dead. Stop torturing me. He's dead. He's dead. And he just says, I was. Like,
yeah.
It almost feels like he's giving up a little bit. Like, I know that the next thing is that everything comes to mind, but like in that moment, nothing comes to mind.
Right.
Immediately.
Well,
he just like needs to tell her like, I was him. I was him. And it's, I don't know, it's pretty heartbreaking. It's like it's a really good moment.
Very effective writing. Honestly, really enjoy these two issues. And I like
really
this
good
moment.
arc.
This spot here, the top panel where Cyan comes into the room. First off, pretty good face for Cyan. For once, a pretty good child's face. She just looks confused, as many children would be. And Spawn looks absolutely fucking pathetic.
Yeah.
He looks deeply shamed. He looks like he just got caught doing something awful. And he kind of did. He got caught terrifying his ex-wife, not intentionally, but certainly he could have avoided that. I like Cyan's reaction. She's like, "Does my mom know you?" And she's like, "Mom, are you okay?"
I
Because
like
a lot
the
of
innocence of
kids
children kind of thing. I think that that's really fun.
That's the word.
I think that it's fun that she's not afraid of Spawn.
Right.
Like, I think that it's interesting, and it's such an interesting little beat, because it's something that makes you think like, look, Wanda, like, you should trust him.
Right. He's not threatening Cyan, and she's saying, "Please don't hurt my baby." He's not doing anything to even indicate he might. He just leaves, and Cyan says, "Does my mama know you?" And he says, "I thought she did, not anymore." Which, this whole moment is heartbreaking. And the next page where Spawn returns to the alley, great page, that's also heartbreaking. We'll get there in just one second. I think that this whole sequence, though, into that last page where the colors, those like green, gloomy colors, and Spawn's just like sitting there hunched in a rage, screaming, and all the bats are flying away.
So many bats. We don't have that many bats in New York.
Love it. You should. They're all hanging out in one alley in the Bowery. That's where all bats in New York live. I love that sequence. I really do. because it's not very super heroic. It's very human and very much like, it almost reminds me of RoboCop when RoboCop goes back to his house.
Oh yeah.
And there's the first one where he shows up there confused and his wife is scared. And then in RoboCop 2, he goes back to her house again, and he encounters his wife again, and she's like talking to him like Alex Murphy, and he just looks at her and he says, "Your husband is dead."
Yeah.
And it's like, it's kind of the inverse of that moment where
That's also why RoboCop 2 is bad though. The whole
2
point
no, it's not. That's good.
No,
RoboCop
the whole
2
point
is good.
the whole point of RoboCop 1 is that he regains his humanity by the end.
But he doesn't lose it in RoboCop 2. He's just telling his wife to move on. He's just telling her not to get caught up on RoboCop.
RoboCop
that
1
movie fucked me up as a kid because the little boy gets shot to death in the fucking back of that truck.
I mean, RoboCop 2 does make RoboCop 3 look like RoboCop 1.
That is very true. That is a true statement.
Wait, no, I said that wrong. RoboCop 3 makes RoboCop 2 look like RoboCop
1. I heard it the way you meant it, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it's this moment of like, whereas in that moment, Alex Murphy is this kind of like robotic creature where his emotions have been gone, even though he's still human. He doesn't have that love anymore, and he's trying to tell his wife to move on. Don't get hung up on me because I cannot give you what you want.
Yeah. All right.
Here, Al is a fountain of emotion, and all he can do is like terrify Wanda because he's so over emotional. It's not overwritten. It's a really nice piece of like actual writing. The sequence plays really well. The storytelling is great. It's a very good sequence to cap off this whole thing. And it actually feels like a version of payoff for Wanda and Spawn that feels in line with this universe and that doesn't feel schmaltzy. Like if he had walked in and she had and had just said all these things to her and been like, "I'm your husband," and she had been like, "I know, I've known it all along," and it had been this like tearful reunion.
Yeah. Wouldn't
feel the same.
This is where I think that the work that Grant Morrison did in the Anti-Spawn arc, where he grabs that little memory and he floats that memory to her, and in that moment,
of closure.
But it also it does feel like closure, but at the same time, it is a reminder that for him, it's still very real and it is very now.
Right.
And in that moment, when he's not overly emotional, he's able to be measured in his response and reaction to her. And he's able to give her a gift. And he's able to understand sort of his place. In this moment where everything is crazy for 2 issues. It's really funny that these issues are called setup, where they are actual kind of payoff.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say at the beginning. I didn't want to get into it too much before we even started, but like the iron of it being called payoff is that, or being called setup, is that it feels more like payoff.
Yeah.
To so much of the files and my wife and yeah.
But I love it. It's good stuff. I love the coloring on this final page. I love the eerie greens. So good. So good.
Coloring really coming together on these issues.
I mean, we've said it any time that Steve Oliff is not, and Ole Optics and that whole team are not on a book. It's noticeable. It's a big difference. And it's just, they understand the assignment.
They're also moving away from those super saturated gradients that were like getting really, really popular.
The gradient on this last page from the yellow up to the blue in the middle panel, and even in the first panel with Spawn, so sick. It looks so cool. It looks so cool. It's so well balanced.
It sells the emotion so well.
Yeah. Because he's literally green with envy.
Yeah.
Of what he's lost, It's great. It's good stuff.
So, final thoughts, Pierce, on this little 2-part arc, setup 1 and 2.
Well, wait. I have a little bit of back matter stuff before we get
Oh,
there.
sorry. I thought we were going to get to that afterwards. My bad.
Oh, I mean, final thoughts on the arc. Good stuff. It was moving. Happy to see the breakdown of what Greg and Todd are doing. Does really feel like the first true. This is the team moving forward. Let's
Yeah.
go. And we're about to get into. I mean, it's funny because this is going to get kind of interrupted. The very next issue is by Alan Moore. That said, I think we're moving. Like we're just
Mhm.
the Spawn train is on the rails, and they are starting to pay off stuff from dozens of issues ago, in like incrementally, and I'm fine with it. I had a really great time reading these two issues. They're so much fun. There's just great storytelling throughout. Dialogue really doesn't get in the way. Narration's not overwrought. Yeah, we do get one page that's just a recap of fucking everything. But I don't mind because we're not doing it. We're not getting beat over the head with it every single issue. And also in this case, if this was your very first issue, you would kind of need that stuff. And the fact we get in, get out on the first page, love it. How about
Wouldn't
you?
be a bad first issue of Spawn, honestly. Like, it wouldn't be terrible.
It does feel like there's a lot of stuff in motion that you missed a bunch of
That's
stuff.
true. But, like, you get the recap at the front for that reason. You get that at least as a bookend. I mean, I wouldn't be recommending pick up Spawn starting with 36 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's the other side of the coin, is that I'm only sad that it took this long to get to a point where we're like reaching these emotional highs and these character moments. That's really what these two issues thrive on to me, is they really start getting into the character emotions and motivations in a way that I feel like Todd as a writer has been trying to get to
Mm-hmm.
and it feels more grounded in an emotional core than an arc like oh god, the big arc where everything comes
The
together,
Hunt.
the hunt,
Yeah.
that doesn't have much emotional core in it. To me,
It's just
it
moving the
feels a
chess
lot
pieces
more
around.
like, it feels like if Avengers Endgame only had the parts where it's the Avengers all coming together, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, this feels more like the I Love You 3000 of
Right.
Spawn
Those little
being
moments.
realized in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love getting more Al and Wanda in a way that doesn't sell the tragedy of it short or take anything away. It just adds to it while also moving the story along. That is fun writing to me.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
So yeah, I think my closing thoughts echo yours. Same thing. I wish it didn't take this long to get here, but we're in good hands at this point with this team capable of telling these kind of stories.
Big agree. Back matter wise, we are getting a lot of letters about the Ku Klux Klan issue
Yes.
because there was a TV spot done on a current affair
Wow.
in like 19.
Wonder if I saw that.
Yeah, apparently in, let's see, North Dakota, in Grand Forks. So it says, one of the letters says, recently in a column in the July 28th issue of the Bismarck Tribune, a woman from Grand Forks, North Dakota, accused an issue of Spawn as being, quote, racist. This accusation was referring to issue number 30, in which Spawn confronted the KKK. She said the cover of the issue depicted the lynching of a black character and portrayed an African American family that was terrified and helpless. To counteract these, quote, racist depictions, the woman went around the entire Grand Forks area and bought every single issue of Spawn number 30 that she could find. Further, Senator Byron Dorgan, a Democrat who is on the same federal council that is trying to lower the, quote, violence on television, said that he will use the woman's example, quote, to see if we can shut down some of the appalling trash that's directed at our children.
Well,
Uh,
you know, uh
yeah. And
yeah.
this
Um
19-year-old is like, what the hell is going on? and is saying like, I'm ashamed that this is the state that I live in. And I think that obviously these people didn't read your book, because if they had, they would have realized that it was not a racist book. And so thanks for making
Well,
comics. And well, I think he means it in intent, like,
right.
which
Yeah, that's the
we
caveat
chatted
I was
about.
going to say.
Yeah, in
We talked
intent.
at length in that episode. I think very strongly that Todd McFarlane et al. Were attempting to do something poetically anti-racist. Yeah.
Yeah. I think unfortunately he's not capable of much poetry. He doesn't read. So
I mean, well, I mean,
listen, what do you
if
want
he
him to
read
do?
Shakespeare, he
If you
might
read
actually
E.
get better at
Cummings,
poetry.
if you
He
read
might
E.
get better at
Cummings,
poetry.
the rest of the so that's in 35. There's another there's a couple of ones just saying that Greg is great. He's a good artist and they're happy to see him. There's another kid that says, who just lists out all the things he likes and doesn't like. So here are the things he likes: the art, no gimmick covers, the 195 price tag, the war between heaven and hell. He says, ignore the religious fundamentalist viewpoints on this one. I know you've taken a lot of abuse on this subject, but you've handled it very well. And he likes all the miniseries.
Okay.
And he says, I, for one, have no desire to see Team Spawn Blood, codename Spawn Force, or Spawn 13. Here's what he thinks could be improved. 1. The writing. Somewhere shortly after Grant Morrison's run on Spawn, the quality of Spawn's writing fell. Which, in fairness, that's the Hunt and the Houdini arc.
Yeah.
But then the Tremor stuff is right after that. So
it's not good, not
I
bad,
don't
not
know.
bad. But the Houdini was a really low point. Let's be honest. That's
true.
Low point.
That's true. Then it says publish the deal. So the deal was originally supposed to be published in issues 19 and 20 and concerned itself with Al Simmons' deal with the devil. This is a key part of Spawn's origin and a part that I think many fans would love to see. So that's what I guess was solicited at some point.
Yeah. Okay.
Was this like, next month you'll find out the deal that Al made. And that's why we've kind
of learned about it 50 times.
I know, but we've also like had Cagliostro and Violator mention like, you made a really bad deal and you don't remember, and we still haven't really totally seen it. So interesting that readers were clued in enough. 3, the misnumbering stunt that happened between issues 19 and 22. I fully realize this is a result of a very bad situation, a lot of circumstances that were beyond your control, but please try to make sure this never happens again. The fans don't deserve that kind of treatment.
Gonna guess that it's an unprecedented, I don't think they're doing that a lot. I don't think Marvel's doing a lot of like reverse shipping.
Yeah. Then the hourglass power meter. Keep using it and try to display it so it's a little more prevalent in each issue. So they're saying they don't like that it doesn't show up all the time, which, all right, me neither. I want it to show up more. It's funny, actually, that it shows up in these 2 issues. Just
because it barely makes a difference.
Well, it shows up in 35. It doesn't show up in 36 at all. Right?
It has one little spot at the very
you're right.
I think.
And the new costume. Is it just me, or is there very little difference between it and the old costume?
I mean, they're pretty similar, but they're different.
Yeah. So Todd says, Joseph, thanks for the comments. I'll have to disagree with you on some of them. The continuity in this book is very important to me as I try and give a consequence to every action. For example, issues 21 through 24 dealt with the consequence of Al stealing guns in issues 6 and 7. The plight of Terry now working for Wynn is a consequence of issues 21 through 24. Spawn 29 and 30 dealt with Spawn trying to get home to New York after being dumped in the Midwest at the end of the Angela miniseries. The whole scenario of Billy Kincaid is tied to some of the events of issue number 5. In some respects, I think if you were to sit down and reread all 35 issues so far, you'd discover far more continuity than you'd think. As for doing stories out of the norm, issue 39 will be about one lone boy who lives in Harlem and what Christmas means to him. I hope you continue to keep your interest.
The story of one lone boy in Harlem and what Christmas means to him.
Yeah.
I don't
And
know
then
why that is very after school special.
he's also ignoring half of the things the kid listed. Like, he's just like, I don't know. There's a lot of continuity. Fucking read the comics. I don't know what to
There's
tell
a
you.
lot of there's so much continuity for you. Every issue has extra continuity.
So then we get a little letter, or we get a little message from Todd at the end of issue 36. Said, we had another one of our great image meetings recently, and for some reason it seems like I'm always down to the last 2 days of my deadline on a book. So while we're discussing the future of the company, I usually recruit the help of those who are there or people that volunteer that are hanging around to help finish up the last few pages. So this go around, I'd like to thank Rob Liefeld and Mark Silvestri, also Mark Irwin, Chris Carlson, and Ryan Adagawa from Wildstorm. Thanks, guys. It is much appreciated. Also, thanks to Kevin Conrad, who picked up the slack on a couple of pages. Next issue, be on the lookout for a character I created almost 2 years ago named The Freak. This issue will be written by Alan Moore and is based on a plot idea that I've had floating around for a while. We have kind of seen The Freak already. He's been obscured, so
I think we had some of that. It was even confusingly obscure.
yeah. Somebody calls out not there not being trade paperbacks. And Todd says, I've always been apprehensive about doing trade paperbacks because I don't know when the correct time is to put one out. If you put it out too soon, most people have already bought the first 5 issues that are collected and don't want to spend another $9 to $10 to get what they already own. I also struggle with the fact of whether or not a trade paperback devalues the regular comic book and the potential back issue sales for the retailer. On the other hand, I've had so many people say they're not prepared to spend $50 on those 5 back issues, but would be more than happy to buy a trade paperback at a cheaper price. These factors are why I delayed the first trade paperback for almost 3 years since Spawn first appeared. Okay, I'm glad that changed.
Yeah, thank God. It would be a lot harder to do this podcast.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. 100%.
And I do recommend those compendium collections. I mean, they're pretty fun to read.
They are
big
great.
Volumes. The page quality is wonderful. The art is full quality. There is no compromising. They're not digest sized or anything. They're not black and white. Really nice.
Yeah, they're kind of like the right amount of page. They're not like some of the omnibuy or absolute editions that are just so big that you're having a hard time like holding it to read. They're comfortable.
Just at the edge of that, to be honest, the 50 issue ones, but they are still very readable. And that's the fun thing about this podcast is we're now getting close to the end of the first compendium. So if you've been following along, that's an easy way to keep up. You're gonna need that next one in a few weeks.
Yeah, and there's a couple more letters here that are reacting to the current affair news report, which did interview Todd about the book as well. And here's what Todd has to say. Though I haven't really touched on the topic of racism, as I'll probably do in the future, my first attempt at the subject was pretty heavy-handed and blunt. My ultimate goal is to show the more subtle side of racism that we all have within us, and not so much the stereotypical KKK type of stories. As a young man who has traveled the country and has basically been on the go since I was 17, I feel I can share a few life experiences dealing with the vast array of human individuals that I've come across and modify them into interesting, readable stories. Though I don't expect everyone to agree with whatever slant I end up taking. I guess all I'm looking for is that we acknowledge that the subjects do exist.
Fair, Todd.
You know what? Pretty measured response from Todd there, and lines up with what we know about him this far through the book.
And certainly acknowledging it is honestly more than a lot of comics were willing to do in any way.
To this day.
True.
To be quite honest, to this day.
They will put out so many metaphors for things they will not touch, to the point where the metaphor kind of loses its meaning because it's never shown against the touchstone of the real thing it's a metaphor.
Yeah, 100%.
So interesting response, and that's one of those things, Todd, like you said, that kind of reflects his attitude. So yeah, I did like this arc quite a bit. I think I'm starting to learn the parts of Spawn that I really dig, and much like X-Men or X-Files or other X shows and properties,
Extreme Home Makeover.
exactly. What really gets you is the personalities
Right.
involved and the people and the characters. I'm finding myself so charmed by, anytime we get, like, honestly, the bit about Terry getting kicked in the balls was such a weird non sequitur, but it was kind of funny and charming to me in the sense that, like, that just happened to Todd. We know that did. I have no confirmation of that, but I'm just positive.
All right,
Like,
I'll put it on the list of things to ask Todd. Hey, Todd, you ever get kicked in the balls?
did you get kicked in the balls by your daughter and put in a comic? Um, so we're getting we're getting to the point where the team's coming together. Yeah, and Capullo and McFarlane are really gelling at this point. They're finding not just they're not just mashing each other's styles together. You can tell that they're starting to find their collective style.
Yeah, there's a real rhythm to these two issues that I think is exciting to see, and it's a really fun read. I mean,
Yeah.
I think part of it is also understanding that what I want from Spawn is not what Spawn is, accepting that what Spawn is can be really enjoyable as long as I'm meeting it where it's at. I think that our big thing, especially through the first dozen issues or so, was, and I think the Coco Swiss did unfortunately affect our expectations a little bit, but because like we saw other writers kind of take this thing on and maybe do something cool or do something like a little bit more
Different.
ambitious.
It was definitely a little more gimmicky than it needed to be that early on because it made it harder for it to really establish its own strong identity for what it is.
Yeah.
While they were building a lot of world stuff that is important. So I want to go back to something you said a second ago and say, God grant me to accept the courage, grant me the courage to accept the spawns I cannot change.
And the wisdom to
can't get fooled again.
Can't shoot the shooter.
That's right.
I think that's it for this episode, George.
Yeah.
Where can people find you if you want them to?
As ever, you can find my little social media presences is Instagram, Blue Sky, Crypt Trash. You can listen to my music. My band is Hypersleep. It's like spacey doom metal. And that's on Bandcamp and Spotify and everywhere else. And you can go to YouTube and check out some of my other music. It's at Witch Crisis on YouTube. Yeah, you can find me those places. And of course, you can find my writing every single dingle day at newsarama.com.
Cool. Yeah, you can find me at PE Lightning or at lapsed.punk on most places on the internet. You can find my writing some places, somewhere, sometimes. By the time this comes out, I have no idea what I'll have out. So, but usually Newsarama or Popverse. If you like the show, you can find Spawnography at Spawnography or at Spawnography Pod on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky. You can shoot us an email at spawnographypod@gmail.com. If you like what we're doing, hate what we're doing, if you send us a letter, we'll read it. So
Yeah.
And read it on the air and respond. So we've got a lot of really fun stuff that we're working on. I'm really excited to keep doing this show. And it's been really cool to see the response to it in general.
Yeah,
and,
thanks everybody for listening, honestly.
Yeah, please rate, review, subscribe. That everything helps the show. And yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. Well, Pierce, for Todd so loved the world,
he gave his only begotten spawn. Later.
Spawn!